Have you ever sat through a family gathering, watching your siblings laugh and talk like you weren't even there? Maybe it's your older brother constantly dismissing your opinion like it doesn't matter anymore. Or your younger sister, who only calls when she needs something, and never once asks how you're doing. You try to speak up, to be heard, to feel valued. But no matter how hard you try, it's like you're invisible. That kind of pain cuts deep. And let's be honest, when you're over 60, you'd think people would start respecting you more, not less. You've lived, you've learned, and you've earned your place in the family. But sometimes, it feels like your voice gets quieter the older you get. And that's not just frustrating. It's heartbreaking. Today, I want to talk to you heart to heart. Not as an expert, not as someone with all the answers, but as someone who understands what it feels like to be overlooked by the very people who should be your lifelong allies, your brothers and sisters. This video isn't about calling them out. It's about lifting you up. It's about giving you 6 powerful, down-to-earth steps you can take, starting today, to take back your voice, your dignity, and your peace of mind, because you deserve better. You really do. Let's begin with the very first step, and it's one that can change everything. Stay calm and protect your peace. I know. That sounds a little too simple at first. But when someone you love disrespects you, rolls their eyes, talks over you, or just doesn't return your calls, the natural response is to get angry, to lash out, to fight back and say, "Hey, you can't treat me like this." And while that reaction makes perfect sense, we're human after all. It rarely works. In fact, it often makes things worse. You end up saying things you don't mean. They get defensive. Old wounds get reopened. And suddenly you're reliving arguments from 20 years ago that should have been buried long ago. Instead, pause. Take a deep breath. I mean, really breathe. Put your hand over your chest if it helps and feel that steady rhythm. That's your power. That's your calm. That's your reminder that someone else's behavior doesn't get to decide your peace. You do. When your brother or sister tries to pull you into a fight, or worse, tries to make you feel small by ignoring you, protect your peace like it's your home. Because it is. You've built this inner space of wisdom and strength over a lifetime. Don't let anyone, even family, tear it down. That doesn't mean you have to let bad behavior slide. But reacting from a place of calm gives you control over the situation. It tells them, "You might ignore me, but I'm not ignoring myself." Once you've calmed the storm inside, you're ready for the second step. Look beneath the surface. Now this part might surprise you. When someone disrespects us, especially family, we usually ask, "What's wrong with them?" But here's a more powerful question. What might they be going through that's making them act this way? I'll tell you a little story. A woman I met, let's call her Linda, shared how her younger sister hadn't spoken to her in months. No phone calls, no texts, nothing. Linda was hurt, furious. She assumed her sister was being petty or punishing her for some past disagreement. But one day, Linda finally called her sister just to say, "I'm thinking about you. I hope you're okay." And the truth came pouring out. Her sister had been going through a silent battle with depression, too ashamed to tell anyone. She wasn't ignoring Linda out of spite. She was drowning. Now, not every situation will have such a tender explanation. Sometimes people really are just being disrespectful. But if we can shift our thinking, even a little, from "they're attacking me" to "they might be hurting in their own way," it gives us the emotional distance to respond with grace instead of rage. Ask yourself, is your sibling overwhelmed? Do they feel jealous? Are they trapped in old family dynamics they've never processed? You don't have to excuse their behavior. but understanding it can help you handle it with more clarity and less pain. And here's something else. By showing quiet compassion, you flip the script. You rise above the drama and take the higher road. And often when people see that you're not reacting with the same bitterness, it catches them off guard. In a good way. It opens a window for real, honest conversation. Maybe not today, but someday. Of course, staying calm and understanding others only works if you also stand up for yourself. And that brings us to the third step. Speak your truth clearly and respectfully. Now I know what you might be thinking. I've already tried telling them how I feel, and it didn't make a difference. And maybe that's true. But here's the thing. How we say something is just as important as what we say. Imagine this. You sit down with your brother and say, "You never listen to me? You treat me like I'm nobody. I've had enough." That's raw, yes. But it's also going to make most people shut down or get defensive. Now imagine instead if you said, "I feel really hurt when I'm left out of conversations or decisions. I care about our relationship, and I want to feel more connected with you. Is there a way we can work on that?" Same pain, different delivery. And the second version, spoken with calm and honesty, opens a door instead of slamming it. You might not get the response you want right away. Your brother or sister might shrug, scoff, or change the subject. But that's okay. Because by speaking your truth respectfully, you're honoring yourself. You're reminding them, and yourself, that you matter. And here's the beautiful part. When you speak from a grounded place, not anger or guilt, you plant seeds. Seeds of respect. Seeds of awareness. And sometimes those seeds take root when you least expect them. Let's pause for a second here, because this is where a lot of people give up. They try being calm. They try being compassionate. They speak their truth. But if the sibling doesn't change overnight, they think, "What's the point?" But here's the truth. Every time you choose dignity over drama, self-respect over shouting, you are reclaiming your power. You're not waiting for someone else to validate your worth. You're living it. And that kind of inner shift, it's worth everything. Sometimes, even after you've spoken your truth calmly and clearly, your sibling might still brush you off or act like nothing's wrong. That silence, that coldness, it can feel like another slap in the face. But here's something important to remember. You are not responsible for how someone receives your truth. You're only responsible for how you deliver it. So what do you do when your words don't seem to land? When they just go on treating you like background noise in your own family? That's where the next step comes in. Set boundaries and mean them. Now I know the word boundaries gets thrown around a lot. But it doesn't have to be complicated or harsh. In fact, setting boundaries can be one of the most loving things you do. Not just for yourself, but for your sibling too. It teaches people how to treat you. It shows them where the line is and what happens if they keep stepping over it. Think of it like this. If someone kept walking through your garden and trampling your flowers, would you keep planting them in the same spot? Or would you build a small fence and say, "Please stay on the path"? That's all a boundary is. It's your way of saying, "This matters to me, and I'm not going to let it be stepped on anymore." Maybe that means limiting how often you call or visit someone who constantly puts you down. Maybe it means choosing not to discuss certain topics that always lead to arguments. Maybe it means saying, "If you raise your voice at me, I'm going to walk away from this conversation." Not in anger, but in self-respect. You don't have to make a big speech or draw a line in the sand. Boundaries don't need to be loud, but they do need to be consistent. The first time you hold a boundary, it might feel awkward. You might even feel guilty. That's okay. Guilt is just a sign that you're doing something new, something that prioritizes your peace. Let it pass. because what comes next is worth it. When people realize that you're not reacting the way you used to, that you're no longer available for their drama, their cold shoulder, or their criticism, they start to shift. Maybe not right away, but the energy changes. And that's when you'll start to feel something incredible. Freedom. And with that freedom comes the chance to do something really powerful. Something many of us forget as we grow older. Be the example. We often hope our siblings will change. We want them to be kinder, more thoughtful, more supportive. But what if you became the model for that change? I want you to think back to when you were kids. Maybe your brother used to tease you and you'd chase him around the yard. Maybe your sister used to borrow your things without asking and you'd yell until mom stepped in. Those patterns, even decades later, still linger. But here's the thing. You're not those kids anymore. You're not stuck in the roles your family once gave you. The quiet one, the sensitive one, the one who always says yes. You're not limited to that script. You can rewrite it, starting with your own behavior. If you want more respect, give it. Not in a way that makes you a doormat, but in a way that shows maturity, grace, and calm leadership. Speak kindly, even when you're frustrated. Listen fully, even when you don't agree. Show up with compassion, even when others don't deserve it. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong beyond measure. Because when your siblings see that you're not playing the old games anymore, it forces them to look in the mirror. And sometimes that's the wake-up call they need. Even if they never say it out loud, they'll notice. They'll feel the difference. And in time, your steady example may just soften their hearts too. And while you're setting that example, don't forget something just as important. Make room for real connection. It's easy to get stuck in a cycle where every conversation with a sibling feels like walking on eggshells. But here's a little secret. Not every interaction has to be about the problem. Sometimes the best way to rebuild respect isn't by addressing the hurt again and again. It's by creating new positive moments together. Invite your sister for a walk, just the two of you. Share a memory that makes you both laugh, even if things have been tense. Send a thoughtful card or photo with no strings attached. Look for those little windows where love can sneak in. Between the tension, beyond the silence. Connection doesn't have to be deep or dramatic. It just has to be real. Even small gestures can open big doors. Maybe it's asking your brother about his garden. Maybe it's complimenting something your sister cooked. These little points of connection remind your siblings that you're more than just the role they've boxed you into. You're a full person, with history, with love, with worth. And the more positive moments you build, the more likely it is that respect will start to grow naturally again. Not because you demanded it, but because you cultivated it. I know this might sound like a lot. And maybe you're thinking, but why should I be the one doing all the work? That's a fair question. You didn't create the problem alone, so why should the burden of change fall on you? But let me offer you this thought. Doing this isn't about them. It's about you. It's about how you want to live, how you want to feel, and what kind of legacy you want to leave behind. You don't have to wait for your brother to apologize or your sister to acknowledge the past. You can start healing today by choosing peace over resentment, connection over silence, strength over reactivity. And you're not alone in this. So many people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s are facing the exact same family patterns. The old wounds, the distance, the unspoken tension. But here you are, choosing to rise above it, choosing to grow when it would be easier to give up. That's powerful. That's inspiring. That's worth celebrating. There's a moment, after all the conversations and boundaries and quiet efforts to reconnect, where you may ask yourself, is it even worth it? especially if your brother or sister still pretends like nothing ever happened. If they still talk over you, disregard you, or treat your presence like a bother rather than a blessing. And here's the truth. Yes, it is worth it. Because every time you choose to handle things with calm and wisdom instead of frustration and anger, you are building something that outlasts the moment. A legacy of grace, dignity, and emotional strength. Whether your sibling recognizes it or not, you are modeling what real maturity looks like. And that brings us to a crucial turning point in this journey: learning to give space for reflection. Now, I know this can be one of the hardest things to do. We all want resolution. We want people to say, "I see how I hurt you," or "I've been wrong." But healing doesn't always come in the form of a heartfelt apology. Sometimes it comes in silence, in distance, in quiet understanding that grows not in words, but in time. After you've set your boundaries, spoken your truth, and offered genuine connection, it's okay to step back. In fact, it's necessary. Not as a punishment, but as a gift. You're giving your sibling room to reflect. Room to sit with your words, your actions, your strength. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it. You give it sunlight. And then you wait. You trust that what you've sown will rise when it's ready. It's the same with people, with family. Sometimes your sibling needs space to see things clearly, to miss your presence, to feel the absence of your usual response, to notice how they're treating you without the distraction of immediate feedback. And while you're giving them that space, don't just wait. Live. Pour into yourself. Spend time with the people who do see your worth. Reconnect with your hobbies, your joys, your peace. The stronger your inner world becomes, the less power their behavior has over you. It's not about cutting people off. It's about making sure you're not cutting yourself down just to keep someone else comfortable. And here's the beautiful part. When you give your siblings that space, without bitterness, without force, you're showing them that growth is possible. That respect is still possible. You're planting a future that, if nurtured right, may still bloom. But there's one more piece I want to share. Something that holds all of this together. It's not a technique or a tactic. It's a mindset. A way of showing up in your life and in your family that changes everything. And it's this. Let go of the small stuff and focus on the bigger picture. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should let people walk all over you. You've already learned how to speak up, how to set limits, how to protect your peace. That's not going away. But sometimes, in our effort to be heard, we get tangled in little fights that don't really matter. A missed phone call, a forgotten birthday, a joke that rubbed you the wrong way. Those things hurt, yes, but they can also distract you from what truly matters. When you're over 60, you start to see life with different eyes. You begin to realize how precious time is, how limited our moments together are. And suddenly you have to ask yourself, is this worth a fight? Or is this something I can release and move forward from? Letting go of the small stuff doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about your peace, your health, your legacy. It means choosing your battles with wisdom, not with wounded pride. And when you do that, something amazing happens. You begin to reclaim your joy. You stop spending emotional energy on things that don't grow you. You stop chasing validation from people who aren't ready to give it. You create space, beautiful, life-giving space, for the things that truly matter. And that's where another golden opportunity comes in. Recognize and celebrate progress, no matter how small. Maybe your sister finally calls you back, even if it's just to say hi. Maybe your brother includes you in a family plan, even if he doesn't say much. These may seem tiny, but they're not. They're cracks in the wall, openings, chances to build something better. So notice them, acknowledge them, not necessarily with a big dramatic thank you, but in your heart, with a quiet smile, with hope. Because sometimes the road back to respect is paved with very small stones, and every step forward, no matter how small, is still a step toward healing. And while we're on the subject of healing, there's one more truth I want to leave you with. One that may surprise you. One that, if you're willing to embrace it, could change everything. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is this: admit your own mistakes. Now wait. Before you close the door on that thought, hear me out. Admitting where you may have contributed to the tension doesn't mean taking all the blame. It means being human. It means being honest. It means modeling the very respect you want to receive. Maybe you snapped at your brother one too many times in the past. Maybe you judged your sister too harshly during a rough season in her life. Maybe you avoided conversations that needed to happen years ago. That's okay. We all have our part. And when you own yours, not with shame, but with sincerity, it sends a message that's impossible to ignore. It says, I'm still growing just like you. And I value this relationship enough to look at myself too. And sometimes that simple act of humility is all it takes to break the ice, to melt the frost, to bring down the walls that have kept you apart for too long. Because the truth is, your brothers and sisters aren't just people from your past. They're part of your story. And if there's still a chance to rewrite that story together, why not take it? Now, as we close this conversation, I want to speak to your heart one more time. You've done more than most people ever do. You've faced pain with courage. You've chosen peace over pride. You've stood up without shouting. You've protected your energy, spoken your truth, and made room for growth. And whether your siblings ever change or not, you have changed. You've taken back your power. You've redefined what family means to you. And you've proven that it's never too late to create a life filled with dignity, calm, and deep, honest relationships. So here's my invitation to you. Keep going. Keep living with intention. Keep choosing respect, not just from others, but from within. Because you deserve to feel seen. You deserve to feel heard. You deserve to be respected. And if this video gave you even a small spark of that strength today, I hope you'll share your thoughts below. Tell me how you've handled these challenges in your own family. You never know who your story might help. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. Every week, we're here to help you live wiser, happier, and stronger at every stage of life. Until next time, take care of your heart, protect your peace, and remember, respect starts with how you treat yourself. The rest will follow.